In the hushed shadows of the American Southwest, there are tales. Tales that whisper not just of a creature, but of a corrupted being. One that doesn't merely watch you from the dark, but becomes something else entirely. A presence so deeply feared that for many, well, even to speak its name is to invite peril. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the complex and, yeah, often terrifying legend of the Skinwalker. Our mission to kind of peel back the layers beyond the usual horror tropes and try to really understand its profound cultural roots, the chilling accounts of alleged modern sightings, and maybe most importantly, the absolute necessity of respect when we talk about these deeply ingrained beliefs.
That's exactly right. You've likely, encountered bits and pieces of this legend online or in movies maybe. But this deep dive, it's really designed to help you navigate the rich tapestry of sources that exist. We've looked at everything from ancient cultural warnings passed down through countless generations to the more recent explosion of internet folklore. Our goal is really to distill the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from it all for you.
And along the way, we're going to try and unravel precisely what these beings are said to be, where their origins are deeply rooted in, cultural belief, and why, even today, they continue to captivate and, yes, absolutely terrify people. So let's really get into this. When we talk about a skinwalker, or naaldlooshii, I hope I'm saying that right, as they're known in the Navajo language, what exactly are we talking about, based on the sources you looked at?
Well, first off, it's crucial to understand that skinwalker itself is the English term. The Navajo name naaldlooshii carries a much deeper, much more specific weight. And the sources, they're very clear. These are not benevolent spirits or sacred figures. Not at all. They're described as incredibly powerful witches, individuals who have deliberately chosen a dark and forbidden path. They've actively rejected their humanity to gain supernatural abilities. It's seen as a profound spiritual corruption at their core.
Okay, so it's not just a person with some kind of unique gift. It's someone who has fundamentally twisted their very essence for, well, malevolent purposes. And when they transform, what forms do these legends say they typically take? Why those specific animals?
Yeah, legends consistently describe them appearing as animals native to the American Southwest. Most often things like wolves, coyotes, foxes, sometimes large birds of prey like owls or ravens. And the choice of animal isn't random. These are creatures often linked with the night, with hunting, intelligence, and sometimes with trickery or even ill omens in different cultures. They're predatory animals, fundamentally. And that predatory nature, it's mirrored in the skinwalker's own actions. They lurk, they stalk, they're said to feed on human fear.
That makes a lot of sense. It connects the dangers of the natural world with something far more sinister, something intentional. And this isn't just some spooky campfire story for the Navajo people, right? There's a profound cultural context here, almost a sacred taboo around even talking about them openly. Can you tell us more about the depth of that belief?
You're absolutely right. It goes way beyond just a scary tale. Deep within Navajo belief, speaking openly and casually about skinwalkers, especially using their true name, naaldlooshii, it's considered profoundly taboo. And this isn't just about general fear either. It's seen as a form of protection, like uttering the name might actually draw their attention.
Wow.
Yeah. These stories, they're not passed down for entertainment. They are serious, solemn warnings. They serve as moral lessons within the culture about the consequences of straying from sacred paths, embracing dark power. And that leads to a really critical point, the immense spiritual cost of becoming one. The sources consistently tell us it's chilling. To become a skinwalker, a person must kill a loved one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, rejecting their humanity entirely in exchange for that supernatural power. This just emphasizes the profound moral and spiritual implications woven into the very fabric of this cultural narrative. It's incredibly serious.
That detail, killing a loved one, that truly elevates the legend beyond simple folklore. It's not just about what they can do, but the unspeakable act they had to commit to get those abilities. It speaks to a deep, irreversible corruption. So once that horrifying price is paid, what are these terrifying supernatural powers they're said to have? What should you elect out for? Or rather, what should you hope not to encounter?
Well, the range of powers attributed to them is genuinely unsettling. Beyond the obvious shape-shifting into animals, they're said to possess incredible speed and strength, like far beyond any natural animal or human capabilities. They can reportedly mimic human voices. And not just sounds, but the specific voices of loved ones, people you know, using this to lure victims out into the darkness. Yeah, imagine hearing your child's voice calling for help in the woods, but somehow knowing it's not really them. That strikes right at the heart of trust and familiarity, turning comfort into absolute terror.
That mimicry is profoundly unsettling. It's not just a scary trick. It feels like a psychological weapon. It undermines the very foundation of community, of safety, the trust we place in the people closest to us. It feels like a direct assault on identity, doesn't it?
Precisely.
Yeah.
It really does. And it doesn't stop there. Some legends claim they can actually control minds, implant thoughts, or cause confusion, making their victims more vulnerable. They're also said to be able to use dark magic, inflicting illness or misfortune from a distance. And some of the older tales even suggest they don't always operate alone. They can reportedly travel in packs, often preying on fear itself, which makes the threat feel even more widespread and pervasive in the dark corners of the Southwest.
So this isn't just some ancient legend tucked away in history books. How does this terrifying narrative actually manifest today? We hear about modern encounters, places where these stories feel incredibly current. What does this all mean for us now?
That's where it gets particularly fascinating and maybe a bit blurry. The legend has certainly spilled over into contemporary consciousness. Most notably with places like the infamous Skinwalker Ranch in Utah's Uinta Basin. The ranch is described in sources as a hotbed of strange activity, attracting researchers, paranormal investigators, sensation seekers.
Right, I've heard of that place.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about skinwalkers there. The reports from the ranch are like a nexus of paranormal phenomena. Everything from alleged UFO sightings, mysterious orbs of light, even bizarre cases of mutilated cattle, often reported alongside purported skinwalker encounters.
It sounds like a magnet for the unexplained. Seriously. And it's not just confined to one notorious spot, is it? People are still reporting encounters out in the wild, even now.
Oh, absolutely. The sources detail a continuing stream of contemporary reports from various locations across the American Southwest. You hear stories from truckers navigating desolate highways, hikers exploring remote trails. Countless people have reported terrifying encounters. These stories often describe brief, fleeting glimpses of humanoid creatures, sometimes on all fours, then suddenly standing upright, or unnervingly close encounters with disembodied voices, or seeing glowing eyes that just vanish into thin air as quickly as they appeared. These modern accounts definitely keep the legend alive and, well, vibrant in the popular imagination.
And it feels like the internet has really grabbed hold of this legend and amplified it, transforming it into a new kind of digital folklore. Wouldn't you agree?
Without a doubt, platforms like Reddit,
Yeah.
especially subreddits like Narno Sleep,
Hmm.
which is dedicated to unsettling fictional stories, but presents them as real, and countless YouTube horror channels. They are absolutely filled with what are presented as firsthand stories and personal accounts of skinwalker encounters. You'll find these chilling narratives where someone recounts, it wasn't my friend's voice, but it sounded just like him, or I saw something crawl on all fours, then stand upright in the blink of an eye. These online tales, often highly dramatized, they really amplify the eerie nature of the legend and make it accessible to a global audience, regardless of whether they're anywhere near the Southwest. What's fascinating and maybe a bit tricky is how these online narratives often blur the line between, let's say, real cultural belief and internet creepypasta. Those short, spooky stories often shared online just for entertainment. It's creating a new, evolving layer of folklore, really.
Right. But of course, for every terrifying story and every chilling internet account, there's usually a healthy dose of skepticism. What are some of the common arguments from people who question the literal existence of skinwalkers or, try to debunk these modern encounters?
Well, skeptics are quick to point out, and reasonably so, that there's simply no verifiable scientific proof that skinwalkers, as described, exist. They attribute the phenomena to a whole range of more rational explanations. The power of suggestion, vivid imagination, or just the inherent human fear of the unknown, especially in vast, isolated landscapes like the desert Southwest.
Sure.
Many of these encounters, they suggest, could easily be explained by misidentification. Mistaking common local wildlife like wolves or coyotes, especially at night when shadows play tricks on your eyes. Others point to psychological factors like pareidolia, that's seeing patterns where none exist, or even hallucinations, which can be induced by fear, fatigue, maybe even certain environmental factors. Natural phenomena like unusual atmospheric conditions or even infrasound low-frequency sound that can cause feelings of dread or unease are also proposed as explanations for some of the more unsettling sensations people report.
Okay, so they offer a rational framework for what might otherwise be perceived as, irrational fear or genuinely supernatural events.
Yeah, exactly. Yet what's equally important to acknowledge here is that despite these explanations, the stories persist. and seem to grow darker with each retelling. This suggests that for many people, these rational explanations just aren't enough to fully dispel the deep-seated belief, especially when they're confronted with what they perceive as genuinely inexplicable events.
But beyond the spooky stories, beyond the debates about whether they literally exist or not, there's this vital, much deeper layer here, isn't there? We're talking about a profoundly ingrained cultural belief that carries immense weight.
This is, I think, the most crucial takeaway from our deep dive today. It's absolutely critical to remember. This legend is not just a horror story. It's not just a piece of fictional entertainment, especially for the Navajo people. To them, skinwalkers represent something far more profound than just a monster hiding in the dark. They symbolize spiritual imbalance, both within an individual and within a community. They embody the ultimate consequences of choosing evil, of rejecting one's humanity, and they speak directly to the breaking of sacred trust, trust within human relationships, and trust with the natural world.
So it's not merely a scary tale, but a powerful moral and spiritual cautionary narrative, deeply woven into the very fabric of their worldview, their ethical framework.
Precisely. And this means that if you choose to talk about them, like we are here on this deep dive, it is absolutely essential to do so with respect. Understanding the gravity and the, frankly, sacredness of the belief system from which these stories emerge. This isn't fiction for many members of the Navajo Nation. It's a lived belief, a very real part of their cultural and spiritual landscape. What's truly fascinating and important is the sheer weight, the profound significance, and the deep lessons these stories hold for the culture they come from. Acknowledging that is absolutely key to truly understanding them, not just, sensationalizing them.
And so we've journeyed from those ancient warnings whispered in the American Southwest through the pretty harrowing accounts of modern encounters and into the sprawling digital campfire tales shared across the internet, always trying to keep that crucial cultural context front and center.
Yeah, we truly hope that by exploring these sources together, you've gained a much deeper appreciation for the complex interplay between these enduring cultural narratives, the profound nature of human fear, and the undeniable power of folklore to shape belief and convey vital lessons. True understanding, especially with a topic as sensitive and layered as this, really requires acknowledging multiple perspectives and recognizing the profound meaning these stories hold for those who live with them.
So the next time you find yourself walking through a quiet desert night, maybe under a vast star-strewn sky, and you hear your name whispered from just beyond the light, ask yourself, is that really who you think it is? Or is something else entirely? Watching from the shadows, waiting.